So welcome to part two. In this part, I'm going to go over the concept of the sculpt mode and the scene mode, or as it's also called, poly mode and scene mode. So you can see these two icons here to indicate which of these modes we're in. The little sculpting tool there, and also the cube. These are the two icons. And basically on the secondary controller here, the thumbstick, if I pull down, I've switched over to scene mode, and I can pull down again and it switches back to sculpt mode. And then you see up the top here this lightning bolt. When I'm in sculpt mode and I hold up on the lightning bolt, and then I can hover inside an object, just basically touch the object's bounding box and it'll highlight. And when I let go, I'm holding up, you can see on the thumbstick with the lightning bolt, and then when I let go, that object will be selected. So that's to quickly switch between objects. So if I hold down, I'll give a better example. If I flick down on the thumbstick into scene mode, and then I'm going to grab this object here. So I'm grabbing it with the side trigger, and then you can see these context sensitive buttons popped up. The X there is to delete it, and the green X is to clone. So if I clone that out here, now I have two. And what I could do, what you did before that the lightning bolt select. If you're in sculpt mode, you would go into scene mode, select that object, come back out, scene mode, select, back out to switch between them. But with this lightning bolt, that's a quick switch. So if I press up on the thumbstick and hold it, you can see the lightning bolt then appears over here, and my pointer goes white, and then I just hover inside. I'm still holding this thumbstick up on the secondary controller, and then whichever one I'm inside the bounding box and I let go, that's going to be selected. So you can really quickly just switch between objects. And you can imagine, if you're working on whatever 30, 40, 50, you can just really quickly go in here and switch between them. And you can see here there's an option as well. If you go into scene mode by pulling down on your thumbstick secondary controller into scene mode, and then you see this screwdriver icon, if I hold that up, you can see a laser pointer, and now it's switched to laser pointer mode. And personally, I pull it down on the thumbstick on the primary controller, and I switch over to finger pointer mode. So I actually physically have to move inside. Whereas if I use the little icon that looks like a screwdriver, just flick that up, I switch over to that. And then if I go back to sculpt mode by either lightning bolting up, or also if that's selected, I can just go down and it'll do the same thing. But I always just use the lightning bolt quick switch because it's just the easiest and the fastest to do. So now you can see in sculpt mode, I actually have, when I hold up on the lightning bolt, the quick switch, I have that laser pointer. And then, as I say, go back into scene mode, flick down on the secondary thumbstick, and then flick down on the primary thumbstick, and that'll bring you into finger pointer mode. So that's just personally, I prefer to work with finger pointer mode. It's just because I'm always, everything, when I'm working in VR, as I said, I'm sitting on the sofa, so I'm not walking around the scene. I'm always bringing the scene to me. So, I'm never going to need that. It's never going to be so far away that I need to use the laser pointer. I can just use it's always going to be, I work quite close to objects. So yeah, just to get that out of the way, that's the basics of switching between them. And if you think of it, if you're coming from another 3D program, if you just think of it as, say for instance, Blender, where you're working at object mode and then you tab into component mode, vertex, vertices, edges and faces. It's the same type of thing, but rather than having direct control at the vertex level, you're just going between your sculpting mode. So now all our sculpting brushes are here. we can see all our sculpting brushes are here. And then if I switch into scene mode, that menu is context sensitive. So when I open it, we have our outliner, we have our extra tools here from the scene mode, and then we have our scene mode specific tools here as well. So think of it like a scene layout mode and then a sculpting mode. So say we're laying our scene out here. Okay, right, we need more of these spheres. So we'll put some here, and then we can organize them as we want in the scene, like blocking out or laying out the scene. And then we say, okay, right, we're finished blocking that out. Now I want to work on this one. So I just switch into that one with the lightning bolt, quick switch, and now I'm into sculpt mode. So you can see these are all dimmed out because I'm working on this one here. So, right, I'm working on this one, and I finished working on that one, and then I want to work on this one, so I just switch to that one. Now I'm sculpting on this one, switch to that one, and you wonder why that's happening with the move brush from the last video. I think I have front face only activated on the move brush, so that's why that was happening. So that's the basic concept of scene mode and sculpt mode, or poly mode, but I just call it sculpt mode. And then how to switch quickly between. And then once you're in sculpt mode, whatever object is highlighted, obviously. Now I don't usually work with this on. I have it turned on from the last video as well. I think it is active object, so I just turned that off. You can you can tell what you're working on by easily enough with this. When you just flick in, you get that white highlight. So let's say, okay, we're sculpting away on this, and then we want to, we might want to get rid of these. So we flick into scene mode, and then you can just grab these, and then context sensitive, and then I can just hit delete. Now there's also a delete tool here as well. Like you can actually select the tool so that you don't have to move it. You can just click on it, or if you're using the laser, you can just laser it. Personally, this is just a personal thing for me, but I don't use the I don't use the dedicated delete tool. I just grab it and then just delete it rather than use that tool. So that's obviously up to you as well. It's just the way I work. So scene mode is where you're going to be creating your primitives or your scene objects, and then sculpt mode is, like, as I said, going into I suppose in Blender it's the same. You have to switch into sculpt mode, and then you sculpt on one object at a time, switch between them, switch back to object mode. It's the same idea, exactly the same idea. So if I select me create tool, now I'm using the wheel here, but obviously they're in here as well in this main menu. You can use that. You don't have to use the wheel if you don't want to, but I definitely advise it because it's just so quick to use. And as I said, you can customize it. So here in the create tool, then we have our basic scene primitives. You have some parametric, some parameters here that you can change. Also, depending on whether you want to use polymesh or voxel, and voxel definitely deserves its own little segment. So you can obviously freely place your object. I'm going to just switch to my matte cap. Freely place it anywhere in the scene, and each time you lay it down here, if I go back to select, I'll use this, and as I mentioned earlier, you can either select them here using the trigger, or you can quick select them, and then that'll jump you straight back into sculpt mode. So if I stay in scene mode here, remember just flicking down on the thumbstick to go into scene mode. I'm selecting here with the primary trigger. So select, and it's selecting one at a time and deselecting the previous. Whereas if I hold it down, I can do a paint select and then click again to deselect. So paint select, quite handy. And then if you press the alternate button here, the invert button, which is the top one on your primary controller, You see this will turn red. That's deselect then, so I can paint the deselect, flick, select again, flick, maybe deselect them, flick, and so on. So that's selecting, and that is the select object tool. So that's kind of almost like your default there that you're going to be on most of the time. And same again, you can press that up and get the laser rather than the finger pointer. So that's primary to select, and then the side trigger here, once you hover in, you can grab and just move that anywhere in the scene, and then you can tractor beam it kind of in and out. I don't really use that. Or you can go side to side and scale it up or down in the scene. And then the context sensitive buttons is going to be clone, so I can just keep cloning, and then delete. So whatever you have grabbed, you can delete, or you can just select all and paint select, grab them, and then delete them all in one go. So delete, delete. So these parametric primitives I showed here, you can just lay them down freely, but you can also lay them down here at the bottom, place object at the scene origin. So just hit once, click once, lays it down. Or else, if I switch to a different one here, say if I lay that one down over here, and then I switch to capsule and stretch it up, and what I'm doing there is I'm holding down the primary thumbstick, and then I can move the gesture of my controller here, moving to change the shape. And you can also see here a preview of the resolution, so I can change that polygon density there, and your primitive then, it doesn't look like, maybe it's to do with the beta, but it doesn't look like the preview of the wireframe is updating to reflect the polygon density here. You can add bevels. This is probably a separate sort of a video thing. Well, it mightn't even need one, because as I say, it's quite self-explanatory. But to get back to what I was saying here, view will just lay it down in the view, bang in the middle of wherever you are looking. And then selection, so I have this one selected here, you can see it's highlighted, and if I hit selection, then that'll be created. Back to select tool, that'll just be created. Aligned as well, so you can see here, if I switch over to the gizmo, it's aligned to this one, to the rotation and the location of that one there. So that's just a quick handy way of placing them down, aligned to other objects, or obviously then freely as well, wherever you like, and at the scene origin. So that's pretty much the basics of creating objects. And then we've already showed, that's create, showed the clone object and delete, and then you have boolean and draw voxel object. I think I showed that briefly, the draw voxel object, in the first video. But just as well to be aware that if you hover over these drop downs, you also have some of these tools, clone and delete are here, so you can clone and place, or you can delete from there as well using that menu. And then I'm not sure what's happening here, but you can see here the outliner. As I said, I'm using the beta version here, so the outliner is only showing the original sphere here. It's not showing the other one, so I'm not sure what's happening there, but usually this will be populated with whatever objects are in the scene. So I'm going to save boolean and draw voxel maybe for future short kind of videos. But yeah, just be aware of these options in here. You have isolate as well, so select like a 3D package, isolate, show all, or you can make a selection, and that has yet to be updated, I think, where it only hides the last one. So even though it says show here, you're deselecting that, so or disabling it, so it's going to hide. It just means hide, basically hide selection. So I think they're going to update that. They were talking about that as well, so that it will hide a selection rather than just the last one, whatever last one was selected. Yeah, export, rename, clone, and delete. We've done that. So group and ungroup, join meshes and split meshes. I talked about them in the first video. Obviously, these are separate. And then I select them, and I have them here on this menu here, the quick access wheel. So now they're one mesh. So they'll behave as one mesh. And then same again, I can just split them. Split meshes, and now back to two separate meshes. So that is pretty much the basics of the difference between them. And you can see here as well that the wheel, I'm going to do that in the video about customizing the wheel, is context sensitive to the scene mode as well. And then if I switch over to voxels, and select the voxel object, then you can see there's the voxel grid. And now the wheel is context sensitive to the voxel tools. So we're going to be drawing in voxels then. And then on the wheel here, I also have convert, decrease, and increase resolution. Sorry, that should be increase. I think I put the wrong one there in the wheel. But yeah, that's going to convert to a poly object now. So when I select it, I'm over to polygon tools, and then I can switch back again, convert, and now we're back to a voxel. You can tell by the voxel grid, and here's the resolution of the grid. So yeah, that was just a silly thing I did there. That should be increase resolution. I think I just reset this up here yesterday. I changed a few things around, so you can also see when I'm in voxels, this thumbstick menu now, it still has the transform, but then it has the increase and decrease here, and also the convert object back to a poly mesh, and you can just convert it as a copy or just convert straight to poly mesh. So I think I'll leave it at that for the moment, because it's just the basics of once you get used to that, the difference between scene mode and sculpt mode, and the various different ways to switch in and out of it, how to manipulate objects, how to switch between objects quickly into sculpt mode, how to manipulate them, move them around, clone them, delete them. And then sculpt mode is obviously self-explanatory. I'll probably go over the brushes in another video. Turn off rotate, long drag, turn on that snap, off the snap. And then where this is just basic, like Blender sculpt mode, or just I suppose like ZBrush or sculpting. So yeah, I'm going to leave that video at this, and I'll do more, probably hopefully shorter videos just on different aspects. Alright then, cheers, thanks, Sculpt.